What's going on, everyone? Now, this is going to be a change of scenery for all of you that have been following me in the den. This is going to be our first mini-series here on the channel, and it's going to feature Baldur's Gate 3. This is a game that I've been looking at for really since it came out. I'll say over a year, but really since it came out. I've really wanted to get this game, and I decided now was the right time to go ahead and get into it. Try to put a mini-series together for the YouTube channel, because I feel like we're lacking a little bit there. This is going to be a fun game to get into for that. Obviously, this is going to be a change up from my normal content of FPS style games, but I'm always looking for something new to change things up, because these are games that I play off stream. I don't just play FPS all the time. The reason I did this video is because I wanted to not spend 2 hours on stream doing this for chat. I wanted to go ahead and look into it on my own, make a quick 20-minute video, and then do an intro to the mini-series for anybody to see whenever they stumbled upon the channel. As we look at our scary octopus man about to feed a jellyfish into somebody's eyeball. Absolutely disgusting. Ugh. Could not imagine. That just kind of grosses me out. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. And he's about to do the same damn thing to me. Look at him. Ugh. Get that thing away from me. Oh God. He's not gonna let me run away. It's just gross. I don't need that. Ugh. So, my thought for this video is to discuss my knowledge of D&D, why I made this particular type of character, and my plans for the playthrough. After this first video, all the content's gonna be from the live stream. It's not gonna be pre-recorded or anything like that. There may be some times where we're doing something else on stream and I want to add another episode to the Baldur's Gate series, and I may do that off stream. But most of these videos are going to be live directly from the Twitch channel as we go forward. First off, I want to tell you about my experience with D&D. Be honest with y'all so y'all know what you're getting into. I have relatively little experience with D&D. Over the past year and a half, I've done 2 different one-shots with some friends. One of them we did completely over Discord, and there really wasn't anything to it. We got through the one-shot in one night. We stayed up really late to get it done, but I didn't really get a full experience. Like, we used a fake dice roll, like a dice roller from online, to do the dice rolling and everything like that. Now, over the summer, we actually were able to do another one where we actually got real dice, and we did a real dice D&D one-shot experience, and it was fun. It was different. We didn't get all the way through it because we ran out of time, and we actually never came back to it. But that's my experience with D&D, so I don't have a whole lot. So this first playthrough for me is going to be having fun, learning how to even play the game, and most likely making some crazy idiotic mistakes that are going to lead me and my character to die way too much, but it's going to be hilarious, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Playing a new game for the first time, not really knowing what's going on at all, especially kind of a different genre. I'm used to playing RPGs and MMOs, things like that off stream. And this is going to be completely different, turn-based, and I'm very excited to kind of get into it and see what kind of mistakes I can actually make. When I play any type of MMORPG, I typically make an odd character type, something that nobody else would want to play, or something that really just is, like, for me, weird, and I'm like, this is going to be what I do, or this is going to be what's interesting. So I did a little research into Baldur's Gate before I started the video, because I knew how complex this character creation was going to be. I think I spent probably about 90 minutes trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and what the different races did, and what your different attributes were for each different race, and what each class did, and what each background did. And it took me a while to kind of get an idea of what I wanted to do. And then the funny thing is, I didn't even get to the part about the Guardian. So when we get to the portion where I have to make my Guardian, my guardian is absolutely hilarious. And one of my friends told me that when we get later into the story, I'm probably going to forget what my guardian was, and then this random, you're going to see it when we get there, this random guardian is going to show up, and I'll be like, who is that? And then it's going to click that, oh, that's the guardian that I made. So as you saw a minute ago, when I started the character creator, I actually kind of leaned into Dragonborn initially because it reminded me of when I played Khajiit in Skyrim for the first time. That was my first playthrough in 2011. I played a Khajiit. Don't ask me why. Like I said, it stuck out to me. So I really wanted to do the Dragonborn, but I kind of had an image of what I wanted to do in my head, and Dragonborn just didn't feel like this type of character to me. Dragonborn, for some reason, feels like a magic playthrough, and that may be something that we get to later down the road, especially with their class abilities that they have. So for my thoughts for this playthrough, I decided to go ahead and go with a human character because it's going to suit my vision for the character better. I really liked to make my characters weird. As you see, I'm spending a lot of time looking at the tattoos here, and I end up changing it again. Once I think I've picked the right one, I go back and change it. I like to go with weird tattoos, white hair, bright colored eyes, just stuff that really, really stands out. What I end up with here is a character that kind of reminds me of a wannabe Henry Cavill, with white hair and a white face tattoo that goes around the sides of his eyes. And you're gonna see that here in a minute. So before we get into the actual class that I decided to do, I want to go ahead and give you my plans for the playthrough while we finish up picking the attributes for my character here. So my overall plan for this playthrough is going to be an upstanding, law-abiding citizen that doesn't do any killing. Typically, I'm opposite of that when I play RPGs. I typically am not a very lawful character, and I typically do whatever I want, whatever the crap I want. And I decided that this time I wanted to do something a little bit different, and hopefully Stream will hold me to that. I want to build a team around me that also is upstanding and doesn't kill and tries to be lawful. So if we've come across a team member that's not like that, I'm kind of gonna shun away from putting them on my team. I also want to hold myself to using only my fists for this playthrough, no weapons. So the only weapons I'll allow myself to use is if there's a weapon that I get with the class. When we get to the classes here in a second, if the weapon that I get generically by the class is used for any sort of abilities, I may have to stick to that to not hinder myself too much in the first playthrough. And the last thing I want to do is create a team that is a close quarters combat style team, if possible. I know that could be difficult to do. I don't know how the game is going to play completely yet, so I don't want to hold myself to something that's going to make my first playthrough unenjoyable, but it's definitely something that we're going to start with and see kind of how it goes. We may end up deciding that we're going to add things to the plan or remove things from the plan or edit some things in the plan because they don't work well, or we need to be a little more strict in what we're deciding to do because that's how I want this playthrough to be. But we're going to see how we start off here because I'm not sure how we're going to start off. As you see here, I go looking for beards for quite a while, and I end up going back to my normal goatee. I think I try pretty much all of them on, and then I end up going with a full beard / goatee type look, which is what I always end up going with. I don't know why I didn't just jump to it at first, because I went to it, there's my goatee, and then I was like, wait, this one is perfect. Look at that. I was like, that's it we're going with. Also, I want to preface, unlike some of my friends, I don't plan to fill my party with the most wifeable characters in the game. I'm talking directly to you, Thar. We're literally, genuinely going to try to make a group that is built around close quarters combat, and it doesn't matter if it's whatever we think is going to be better. So I'm very interested to see how that team aspect works and how the turn-based style works. I've never played a turn-based game before, so I'm going to be very interested to see how I personally play through that. So we're about to get to our class creation here, and I want to just go ahead and say that I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my classes. I really almost went with a magic build. I usually like to do magic, but I stepped away from that this time around, and I went with something that I thought was going to be interesting for a game like this in terms of turn-based, and there's a lot in my experience playing D&D. You know, the closer you are, you need a well-rounded team, but I'm going to try to circumvent that and have a team that's all made of close quarters combat. As we see, I go ahead and get my finalized tattoo here, and then I kind of look at the piercings and I decide to not do any of the piercings. And now we're about to go ahead and move on to my class. So I'm going to go ahead and say I didn't go with any magic builds. That's not what I wanted. And I went with Monk. I thought Monk looked fun. Something about rolling dice to see how hard you get to punch somebody sounded funny. And something that could make me laugh and everybody laugh, because you go to punch somebody and you just completely miss them because you roll a nat zero, not a nat zero, but a natural one. And it's going to be hilarious if something like that happens. And then if I build my entire team around the same thing, it's going to be hilarious when we all miss and we're like a foot away from somebody with a sword, or a foot away from a spellcaster, and then we get blasted. It's going to be absolutely priceless. As you see, I decided to try to look at makeup here, and I ended up going with nothing. I was like, well, maybe I'll do something interesting, and then I ended up leaving it all out. And as we see, I did have to play around with the lip tint, because I was like, what does all this do? This game does one thing very well, at least up front here, and I really do like the character customizer. I feel like there's a lot of different options. So in the class, I did choose Monk, and like I said, I feel like this close quarters combat style is going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of risk, a lot of high risk, and there's a lot of possibility that I'm going to get smoked, but that's okay. We're learning. I liked the way the character looked. Like I said, it reminded me of like a Henry Cavill-esque character, and that's what I wanted to go ahead and do. So for my background, I wasn't really sure of the significance of what the background was going to be, and I didn't want to do something completely out of pocket and mess myself up. So I just went with something very simple, and I went with Soldier. Soldier worked for me. I kind of read through all of them, and just being a monk, I didn't really understand what the skills was going to bring to the table, but being a monk that was going to go for just one punch manning people, Soldier sounded the best to me when I read through all of them. Like I said, I wanted to do a lawful character, so that I kind of took criminal out, and urchin didn't sound right, and entertainer and folk hero didn't fit, so I went ahead and went with Soldier because it felt best. I also decided to go ahead and leave the abilities as standard. I wasn't sure what sort of significance, as in the one-shots that I've played, skills really didn't come into effect that much, and it's probably because we just did a one-shot. The skills really didn't come into effect that much, or they didn't level up. Like, obviously you pick your starting skills, but there wasn't much complexity there because it was just a quick one-shot that we went over a 3 to 5 hour period. So I didn't want to screw myself and get midway through a campaign and realize that because I did some stupid thing with the abilities where I put everything into dex, or I put everything into strength, that I was completely screwed and it was going to be miserable later in the playthrough. So I do end up going with a standard ability point for what the recommended is for Monk. So this is my character. We're a human monk. I kind of look like Henry Cavill with gray hair. I've got some interesting tattoos, and everything else is pretty much standard. Y'all know that I want to do a lawful playthrough. I want to build a team around me that does that, and we want to do close quarters combat, and we're gonna see if this even works. I may get in, and like I said, I may have to change the plan, and that's completely okay. But this is our starting character, and I had to think of the best D&D name possible. As you know, D&D has some funny character names. You really got to think about it. And I spent probably 10-15 minutes thinking about what I wanted my character to be called. Once I decided that I was going to be a monk, because I wanted it to be a play on what my character does. And as you can imagine, I came up with something that I felt like was very D&D-esque. So I'm gonna hit proceed here, and then we're gonna see what I come up with. Like I said, this took me a couple minutes to decide. So I wanted something that dealt with being a monk and punching people, and this is what we came up with. Now I'm gonna type it in here in a second. But I did a 2-part name, and I called myself Strongmon Light-Hands. And I thought that was perfect for what we were trying to do. I'm a monk with a quarterstaff. I'm gonna try to punch the ever-living crap out of people, and my whole team is gonna do the same thing. So why not have the team lead be called Strongmon Light-Hands? Crazy. Now I'm gonna type it in here in a second. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to spell it, and I did Swolmon, M-O-N, Light-Hands. So this is it. Our character, Strongmon Light-Hands, for our D&D Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough. We're gonna do however long the series takes. I'm not gonna limit it to 10 episodes. We're just gonna do it on stream. We're going to do some off stream probably, depending on what other games come out. But we're gonna get all the way through this playthrough from start to finish. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how segmented or how much time there is between uploads. We're gonna try to be consistent, at least do one upload a week. But this is it, and I'm very excited. Now, lastly, I told y'all that I had no idea what a guardian was. And I went through this for a couple minutes, and I was like, okay, why are they female? I was like, guardian, is this gonna be part of my team? Now, I realized that a guardian doesn't have to be part of your team, and they're not part of your team. It's somebody that you stumble into later in the story. So I couldn't decide what I wanted. As you see, I'm clicking around furiously like, why are they all female? What is going on? I was like, well, I don't want a female. I want a cool guardian, somebody that's different. And I couldn't decide what I wanted here. And so I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm like, like I said, I don't know a lot about the races or anything like that. I was like, I really don't want what I'm looking at here. So I end up going with a male dwarf. You're gonna see me get to it here. I spent way too much time on it when I decided what I was gonna do. I went with a dwarf. I clicked on dwarf and I was like, okay. I was like, maybe this will work. And I was kind of thinking initially that the guardian would be able to be part of my team. So I was like, well, I'll get a dwarf that punches things. That'll be great. Well, that's not how this works. So we're going to choose a little dwarf in just a second here. And here we go. So we're gonna choose a dwarf. I like the way the dwarf looked. I was like, ooh, okay. So we go with the dwarf, and we end up editing him up a little bit so that he looks a little more stoic, I guess to say. And then we go ahead and go along with our playthrough here. Look at that shielded dwarf right there. Perfect. Looks like somebody out of Lord of the Rings, doesn't he? I love it. Made him old, gave him a little freckle, gave him a little tattoo. Y'all can tell that I spend way too much time on character customization. I kind of sat on that one. I gave him 2 odd colored eyes. I was like, this is perfect. Purple and blue. I don't think I went with any makeup, and I think I left his hair. Oh, maybe I did change his hair. I did change his hair. So we have this fun guardian that we're gonna run into. I don't know if it's I don't know when it is, but it's later on in the campaign. We have this hilarious looking guardian that we're gonna run into, and it's gonna be so funny when we get there, because I'm gonna be like, who is this? And then I'm gonna remember this is the guy that I made. So this is it. This is our guardian. This is Strongmon Light-Hands, and this is gonna be our Baldur's Gate 3 first playthrough. So I hope that y'all are excited. I hope that my rambling didn't bother y'all too much. And we are gonna see how this goes. Thank y'all very much.